Oh, that's a long way down. Hey folks, Pete here from the Irish Times, and I have an interview for you today with an expat who's been in Bangkok for many years. And this one is a little bit longer than what I would usually do because I didn't want to take away from the substance of the interview, so I didn't edit too much out. Anyway, if you enjoyed this interview, please like, share, subscribe and leave a comment below. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts and opinions about how the interview went. And without further ado folks, introducing Bangkok Pat. So folks, I'm here with Bangkok Pat, another YouTuber based in Bangkok, but from, well, we're going to get into that now in just a moment. So yeah, well Pat, thank you very much for joining me here today.
Absolute pleasure, Pete.
Yeah, so let's start with the question I always start every interview with. Where are you from?
I grew up and I was born in the UK. And it's a bit of a long story because I was actually born in Leeds. I think it was an accident because my mum and dad were coming back from Thailand to get to Leeds where my granddad was sick in hospital, and I was originally supposed to be born in Bangkok, but they rushed over. My mum was heavily pregnant, and then I got born in Leeds, and then we went straight after that to live in London. So I grew up pretty much in London. You know, my mum's Thai, my dad's English. We grew up as a Thai family right up until, you know, I was 11 years old.
So what was life like growing up in London?
In the late 70s, it was very multicultural. I grew up on a brand new housing estate in North London called Andover Estate, and like I say, it was very multicultural. There was racism that existed, but I think the kind of racism around that time was probably classed as acceptable, and some of the kids were racist, but again, I think it was down to what they'd inherited from their parents, because a lot of the kids on that estate were all from different backgrounds. But eventually we all sort of became like friends, everyone became friends. So growing up was interesting. Yeah, there was a lot of kids from a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of immigrants as well. And I had friends from all over the world who'd come to England, and I'm talking, you know, Jamaica, Barbados, Antigua, St. Lucia, Nigeria, Ghana, Philippines, Greek, Turkish, Cypriot, French. There was kids from everywhere, you know, where I grew up, and it made for a really sort of interesting mix of cultures at school. And as I got older, a lot of those kids all had a different culture to identify with, and I thought, hang on, and so have I, but I've never really looked into it. And my mum passed away when I was 11 years old. So pretty much up until then, we were a Thai family. You know, my mum and dad spoke Thai. My mum spoke Thai to us. We ate Thai food, and you know, if I did something bad, I got Thai style discipline of my mum. No, you know, one of those brushes they used to sweep the leaves up, or with the.
What, you got a crack of a brush?
Yeah, just a handle. But not. It was like very theatrical. It was like tense.
I got the wooden spoon.
Yeah. It wasn't a beating. It was like, well, I did a lot of shit when I was a kid. I did a lot of bad things, and so I expected it. In those days, you expected it. Now I could have sued them.
So you grew up in London, half Thai, half English, and is that the reason why you came over here to, like, you know, maybe I don't know. Tell us why did you come over to Thailand?
Like I was saying, a lot of my friends all had ethnic backgrounds, and I realised as soon as I was, as soon as I got old enough and sort of understood what it was all about, having an ethnic background, coming from a different culture, a completely different way of life, was part of me too. I thought, hang on, well, I'm half Thai here, and after my mum died, I pretty much forgot I was Thai. I became a teenager. I didn't identify with my Thai side anymore. We didn't have any contact with any Thai relatives. We had very small number of Thai friends close by, not enough to keep me fluent in Thai. And then, as a teenager, after my mum died, I went off the rails completely. It was a case of I was an unruly teenager, and I got into the wrong crowd. I got into doing stuff like shoplifting, doing graffiti, hung around with kids who did graffiti, travelled around on the London Underground day and night, putting our tags on trains. I wasn't much of a graffiti artist, but it was the lifestyle I loved at that time. Yeah, I can't do this. But I did hang around with graffiti artists. I knew of graffiti artists that did go on to be very respected.
So Pat,
for sure.
What age did you first come over to Thailand?
I was in my early 20s when I first came, and it was by mistake, I think by accident, really, that I ended up living here. I wanted to come for a visit to, see what Thai people were like in their own country, and as things turned out, it happened. A lot of things happened all at the same time, and I ended up thinking to myself, I've been going through a pretty bad patch personally at that time, and I thought I'm going to take a trip to New Zealand. I'm going to go and work on fishing boats in New Zealand. You get paid a lot of money. You spend 2 weeks on a fishing boat. You stay for 6 months, and you come back with a load of money. I thought I'm going to do that, but on the way, I'm going to stop in Thailand and have a quick break. And when I went on that trip to Thailand, I met a lot of nice people, made a lot of good friends, and did a lot of interesting things, and learned a lot about myself and the culture. So I didn't get to New Zealand. I thought there's other stuff I can do. It opened up a whole new window of opportunity for me. And at that time I was working in a Thai restaurant in London, and so I was surrounded by people telling stories. A lot of the customers would come back from trips to Thailand and tell me stories about what they'd done and where they'd been and how amazing things were. And that was it. I was sold. I thought, I'm going to get to Thailand, buy a one-way ticket, spend a few months, and then come back. And as things turned out, those few months turned into years, and I ended up coming back to London and bringing more and more of my stuff back, including all my records and music, and spent time as a DJ. I studied teaching English as a foreign language course as well in that time. Gave me another option. So, it was interesting. My first few months arriving in Bangkok was just like how I used to be when I was young, growing up in London, just leaving school. It was like ducking and diving and looking for, you're looking for ways to, you're looking for a job. I was looking for a DJ job, so I had to go around lots of clubs with a CD and stuff. Or I was looking for a teaching job, so you had to go around Bangkok. There was no internet.
And what year are we talking here?
2001, 2002. Bangkok was a pretty chaotic, unfriendly city at times, and you had to make your way around to get it, to get what you wanted. And I know there's a lot of people who feel like I'm an expat living in Thailand, I need to make a good impression. There's no way I'll tell anyone that I was skint or I no way I would tell anyone I'm feeling like this or that, I'm feeling depressed. But you know, but at the end of the day, we're all human.
So you mentioned there depressed. Is this when you first came to Thailand, when you were in 2001 around? Is that what you mean when you say depressed? That time?
I think with depression, I experienced that from a pretty young age after my mum died, because me doing the mental health videos was myself also calling on some feelings that I've had, obviously. When my mum died, after my mum died, you know, at home we were very much alone. My dad was working a lot. There was me and my sisters. My older sister was trying to take charge of things, but you know, she was 13 years old, and I went off out and about on the buses, on the tubes around London on my own, looking for places, or just travelling, just wanting to go somewhere. So I felt like I wasn't going anywhere as a kid, and then not long after that, I sort of became a bit rebellious. But when I was 12 years old, I realised that a lot of kids were getting paper rounds or getting odd jobs. So I got a paper round in the mornings delivering for some newspapers. And I remember it was when I first got to high school, secondary school, and after my paper round I used to go straight to school. And that was the first time I experienced being bullied from a teacher, because I used to get to school and I'd been delivering newspapers, and so my fingers were pretty dirty. And she started to notice as well, and so every morning in front of the whole class she'd come up and inspect all my hands, and most of the time they'd be dirty, and she would tell me in front of the whole class, go and wash your hands in the toilet now and get some soap. And it made me feel about that big. And you know, my mum had just died. I was 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. But the other kids in the class didn't laugh. I think they also realised that this woman was a silly bitch. You know? Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a teacher, someone in a position of power, bullying kids. When you think about that, like, here's an adult taking out all their misery on a child.
Yeah, parading me in front of the whole class. Come up, stand at the desk. Let me see. Show me your fingers. Show me your hands. And so, yeah, that actually made me. It didn't, you know, and that's not the reason why I started bunking off school. But it didn't make me very interested in what this teacher had to say or whatever advice. But you know, it was the first time I actually felt like being bullied. But the way I saw it was like the other kids didn't laugh at me. You know, that if they had, I would have probably.
Did they feel sorry for you?
They felt sorry for me. They knew my mum had just died. They knew we didn't have much money.
And did the teacher know your mum died?
Yeah. It was two kids in class who had their hair permed, two black kids, and that was the fashion in those days, in the mid-80s. It was called a jerry curl, and there were two kids who had big curly perms, and she picked on them as well for some reason. So she had a weird sort of sense of, I don't know why she became a teacher really.
So Pat, what are the biggest changes that you've seen in all the years you've been here? It's how many years exactly, if you work it out all together?
About 15.
15 years.
Solid years if you added them all together.
So from 2001, and then, but let's go from 2001, when you got 20 years ago, right? What was it like then in Bangkok?
It was disorganised. Bangkok was traffic clogged. There weren't any condos. There was none of these tall buildings. There were tall condos, but they were painted white. They weren't glossy and made of glass like they are now. I think that's all come in the last 10 or 12 years, I think. There was very few shopping malls. The main ones were Siam. Paragon came along in 2006. The Emporium was a posh one if you wanted to impress someone. Major Cineplex was somewhere to go, Central Lard Prow, Seacon Square. You were quite, there wasn't a big choice of malls like there is now. A lot of Sukhumvit was disorganised. There was a lot more places to go out, a lot more places to drink, a lot more after hours places.
Describe your YouTube channel and tell us, why did you get into YouTube?
I started the YouTube channel because I had a lot of time on my hands. I also had an idea to have a tour company or be a tour guide. I looked into that and I saw online that there's a lot of people who don't know a lot about Bangkok doing tours, individuals. I won't mention any names, and one of them even had a YouTube channel, and on his website he's charging 3,000 baht to take them around the same old places that people can go around themselves. So I thought, if he can do that, I can do that. Anyway, the tourists stopped coming because of this thing going on at the moment. So I had a lot of time on my hands. I bought a camera. I thought, I'm going to make a video on my local area, which was Lard Prow, and it took me about 5 weeks. I'm going to chuck it on YouTube and just see what happens. Throw caution to the wind. And it got shared by a couple of people I knew. One guy was an old friend from years ago called Bangkok Phil. He's famous for having that name, and he runs a website called ajan.com. It's a teaching website. And the other guy has a website called Stickboy. It's an expats website with all news and videos and all that kind of thing. And I thought, well, I need to raise my profile somehow, so I joined Twitter, so people sort of get to know you a little bit, slowly. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to follow this video up now. What am I going to do next? And so the channel started. I thought, and then the next video, I thought, I'll do Sukhumvit. I'll do Secrets of Sukhumvit and just leave it at that, no more. And then that got a few hundred views as well after a week. I thought, I'm going to have to do another one. And then it's enjoyable.
It is enjoyable.
As you know,
it's like
it's great.
You're like always thinking, what's the next idea going to be? What's next?
Yeah.
What's next? What do they like? What do they not like? This worked well. Okay, we'll try that again, or we won't try that again.
It's that realization, isn't it, that it dawns on you one day that you think, hang on, this is all up to me. What I put in this video, it's up to me to put into this video what I want them to see. And when that dawns on you and you think, wow, the opportunities are endless to show people, what you think.
The biggest thing for me to get my head around was that I know a lot more of Bangkok and Thailand than other people. But I didn't realise that at the start, because you're living over here, and we've been living over here for what, 10 years. You've been here longer, and you realise what is real. Like, it's just normal life to us. This is kind of how we live. It's real. Yeah. It's just our life. And then all of a sudden you don't realise that people don't have that, I suppose, the same level of knowledge, or maybe people want to know, or you just, because you're living it, you think it's normal when it's actually maybe other people might find it interesting.
A lot of this knowledge to us, we just naturally have it because we live here. But I get a lot of questions on the, through comments and stuff, asking me stuff about, when's Thailand going to reopen, and when can I come back to Koh Samui? And I don't know the answers, but because they're so far away, and to them we look like we're old hands or whatever.
How do you feel when you see other YouTubers make a video about a topic, and it's fake, it's not real, that what they're saying is not the truth, it's just exaggerated hype?
I don't know. I think I know there are a lot of channels who would benefit a lot by doing just a little bit more research, but then I would say that because that's part of my channel is I like to explain a lot about everywhere I go, because I was always crazy about history when I was young, and so I was looking into what kind of channel would I want this to be, and then I realised that nobody does anything, nobody explains anything too much about where they're going. It's like I was watching a couple of videos at the time, and it was like this guy goes around the elephant building, and I thought, oh right, we might learn something about the elephant building here, and he didn't. He goes, oh yeah, let's have a walk down the elephant building, and he stopped at a Starbucks. I thought, is that the best you're going to do? You know, you're at an elephant building, at least look up a couple of facts and tell us. It will pass the time, it will pass a minute, it might get you a few more likes, but then again, you know, I would say that because people, I think what you know, what gets views seems to be such trivial, shallow things, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
You know what I mean?
And like, I will, if that's where the views lie, that's where the views lie. I don't have to go down that, because you still keep your
you got your morals.
Yeah, you've got your morals. Like, you see, you know, I don't want to go crazy about, you know, going off on other YouTubers and all that, but it's like the game that we're in is all about, you know, the guy with the biggest ego and the fakest, you know, fake life.
Yeah, I haven't got the balls to be like that.
No, and I don't want to be like that either. I don't care how many views it might get.
I mean, people say, and then people would turn around and say, "Oh, you're jealous. You're jealous because," and I would say to them, "Yeah, I bloody am jealous. Look how many views they're getting for what they do." But on the other hand, you can't. I remember someone mentioned on some discussion forum. It says, "Oh, I don't like Pat's channel because no one watches it." And this is after like 3 or 4 videos. I don't like it because no one watches it, not because it's crap or I'm useless at presenting, but because no one watches it. So I thought, well, you don't watch my channel because no one else does. That's very logical. Why don't you give it a try? But yeah, do you know what I mean? You can't say one channel is better than the other, because if they're doing the same theme, then you can compare them.
But you know how I see it in my mind. When you were in school, right? There was always one person that, let's say, didn't have the brains.
Yeah.
Okay. There's always, in a classroom of people, 40, 50, whatever, how many people. There's always one person that just doesn't have it, right?
Yeah.
You have to remember that that person has access to the internet and can go on a thing and type, and they can say whatever they want about you, and there's no repercussions. And then that's social media in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Anyway, Pat, let's go back into the questions. We veered off a little bit there. We went off on a tangent.
You got me in a bad mood there, other YouTubers. Do you know, I will say one thing. I've never had a spat with any other YouTuber. I've had a few comments where they're trying to provoke you into slagging another YouTuber off by suggesting this or suggesting that, but then after a while you realise that people do try and wind you up in comments, which is why we have a block button or a hide user from this channel option.
Yeah, don't engage, block, and see you later.
Yeah, because if you engage, it becomes a completely long drawn out can of worms and your channel could get cancelled.
So let's get into subscriber questions. I posted on the community tab and I asked you guys for your questions for Bangkok Pat, and here we go from Dave Bull. And Dave says, would you ever move back to the UK?
No, not really. No plans. In Cornwall, when I was a volunteer in mental health. How can I say it? In a hostel where a lot of people had mental health problems. They were from all different walks of life, and at the time I was doing a course on counselling, and I was volunteering because I wanted to see what it was like. Anyway, when I was doing that, I met a lot of blokes who had come back to Cornwall in their 50s. They'd been living abroad for 20 odd years, or they'd been around the world doing stuff for 20 odd years or more, and they had come back to Cornwall at that age in order to settle down, claim their pension, and just sit around. And I thought, I can't do that. And they all had loads of stories to tell, and half of them wished they hadn't have come back. So I always had it in my mind that I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go back to, you know, I'm worth more here.
Okay, this one comes from Scott in Chicago. Have I ever told you that Chicago is my kind of town?
They call it the Windy City. Scott's one of my subscribers, and I'm in touch with him quite regularly, and so say hi to Scott.
Yeah, how you doing, Scott? So Scott asks, is it possible that you're searching for more than just neighborhoods, rail lines, clongs and buildings when you make your YouTube videos? Is it possible you're searching for the roots of your Thai family? Good question.
How can I, in a way, yeah, because before, you know, about 3-4 years ago, I was looking for a couple of long lost members of the family. I had to seek out some of my mum's old documents, and you know, she'd been dead nearly 40 years. So seeking out documents on pieces of paper from an old district office from where she grew up took me on a big journey. And so that's probably why I thought doing my first Lard Proud video would be a lot easier. I thought, well, if I can look for that, I can look for this. But yeah, in a way, yeah. And I did find a few interesting things, a few surprises, and I'm glad I did.
And I have one from Supriya. I hope I pronounced that one correctly. And Supriya asks, how are your Thai language skills?
I don't read or write, although I recognise letters. Not bad, but not great. Definitely not advanced, that's for sure.
This one comes from Padka Prao. And I love that name, Padka Prao. I love the food as well. Padka Prao asks, does your partner help when you film your vlogs?
A couple of times she's come, and I've warned her beforehand. I said, you're not going to like this when I keep wanting to do another take on a talking shot.
I hope she's not watching this.
Do you know,
go on, finish it. Go on, just be honest. That's what we're here. We're here to be honest.
Does she help? No, she came with me yesterday to Rangsit actually, and she said she enjoyed it. But I wasn't shooting any dialogue scenes. It was just shooting. No, I think it's not fair to drag someone out with you, especially when I'm rushing off. With what I do, I always find something new. Around the corner, I might disappear suddenly, and I've found, you know, a wall or another old building somewhere.
Mark asks, who is your favourite boxer of all time?
The best heavyweight at the moment is Tyson Fury. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Of all time, I would say Nigel Benn, British super middleweight, Lennox Lewis, Mike McCallum, Jamaican middleweight, Mike Tyson, Prince Nassim.
Well, but you've got to pick one. If I nailed it down, said just one person,
it would be someone.
Jake Paul.
Is he a boxer? Is that boxing? What he does?
Go on, answer.
I don't know. If you think of someone I was growing up, when I was growing up, as in when I first started getting into watching boxing, it was Nigel Benn, Lennox Lewis. Those were the guys you cheered on. Chris Eubank. Be Nigel Benn, probably because he was so exciting. Master of the Cranium says, if you had a time machine, which decade or era would you go back to and why? Late 1980s. I think it would definitely be more interesting. Still a raw, unexplored, chaotic city with a lot of character compared to now. probably 1,000 times more welcoming than it is now, to be honest. Call me old-fashioned, but I think if you were here 10 years ago, compare how Bangkok looks to what it does now. It's like, how many shopping malls do you want? How many condos do you want? That is not progress, you know. Another example is Hua Lompong. Please don't knock it down and build a shopping mall. You know, it's more impressive to preserve this heritage, but of course, in third world countries, they think this is progress if it looks nice. So yeah, that's a shame.
Mark Day asks, do you have permanent residency?
Yeah, I do. I've got an ID card.
You've got a Thai ID
Passport,
card?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll show you it, but...
No, we believe you.
Yeah. It's in my pocket.
I believe you.
Yeah.
Pat, it's a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for calling me up.
Best of luck with your channel.
Yeah, you too.
Everything that you're doing, I think you're doing a great job.
Cheers.
And it's always a pleasure talking to you.
You too. And we got stuff planned as well in the future, haven't we? But again, it's finding time, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll do something, Pat. We'll definitely do something together. Some skits or some kind of funny kind of comedy, maybe. We have a couple of ideas. We're bouncing off each other.
Yeah, characters.
So anyway, I'll leave a link to Pat's channel in the description box below, and subscribe to me as well if you haven't already subscribed.
Yeah, make sure you do. Yeah.
And we'll see you on the next one, folks.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
See you later, Pat.
See you later, Pete. Take care, mate.
I'm off to do my second job. If I can start this engine. Never get out of here.